Strap in with Mark Shepherd and Aaron Davies.
Hello everyone, welcome to the action. And how do you like this for a group? 4 players, all of whom are more than capable of winning the tournament, and starting out with a battle of 3 World Championship titles. This could so easily be the final, but it's ended up being the first group match. That's the nature of the draw, so many good players out there. Aaron, and we were just talking off air, this is pretty tough. You're playing in tonight's group, and if you get through that one, you'll be playing the winner of this group. It's not going to be an easy path to the semis.
Yeah, especially Tom's on great form as well, and he winning back-to-back events, the last 2 events really, so he's definitely going to be the man that everyone's looking at in this group to try and beat.
Yeah, it was a slightly indifferent season. He reached a semi-final in the first Pro Series event, but then had quite a few first-round losses after that. But then suddenly turned up a new man in Blackpool at the beginning of this month, smashed all before him in winning the first event, and then only just narrowly pipped by the eventual winner in the semi-finals of the second one.
Yeah, he's been saying he hadn't been practicing much this year, and then going into these last couple of events, he's sort of said to himself, "Look, you know, I need to get on the practice table," and clearly it's shown, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. He's obviously such a good player. I think a lot of people watching will be thinking, well, even if he doesn't practice, he's probably pretty good. But actually, that little bit of extra sharpness he was talking about playing sort of 30, 40 frames a day in the lead up to that Pro Series win, shows just how that level of dedication can yield results.
And Phil as well, he beat me at the last tour event, and he played pretty much flawless, so maybe he's coming back into a bit of form possibly as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody thought that Phil Harrison would be a real force to be reckoned with when Ultimate Pool started. He won the first Masters event back in earlier on in 2021, but then maybe not quite as highly ranked. Coming into the season ranked 21. I'm not sure there are 20 better players in the world than Phil Harrison.
I think if anything, the one thing you could maybe point out in Phil's game is his break. I don't think he's really been breaking as well as most players, and when you're playing at this standard, you need to be potting off the break, otherwise you're going to struggle to win games.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Cousins is the perfect example of that. He's been potting off pretty much every break.
That have had a couple of scrappy frames, you're going to see the time coming into it.
Yeah, and from a neutral's perspective, it's kind of fun to see some of those. You don't want it every game, obviously. A couple of matches haven't quite reached the 7, but they've been more one-sided, so we haven't had quite the last gasp drama that we might have expected so far.
Dry break from Tom as well, but luckily for him, when he just sat back down in his seat and seen where the balls were, they're all a bit scrappy, so that's probably what you want to see really if you don't pot a ball.
Yeah, that's not something you see very often from Tom either. Normally, in the very, very rare occasions he doesn't pot a ball, he has split them up well. This time, there's been a lot of movement. They've all ended up at the top of the table, but still a few clusters. Really is a collector's item, the dry break from Tom Cousins.
Why has he hit a cushion there? So foul if the white didn't hit a cushion, yeah.
Yeah, that was careless. His tables are fast, but not that fast.
I mean, on that shot there, really, anything but not foul, I think, because he wasn't going to be leaving Tom much, whereas now he can put the cue ball anywhere on the table and he can possibly find a way to open his balls up with his first shot.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. He's leaving himself plenty of angle on this first pot.
Wow, what a shot that was as well.
He's really got into that. Deliberately left himself quite a lot of angle. Some people would have played it a bit thicker, but he left all that angle so he could turn up at the top corner with a lot of pace. And boy, did he turn up with a lot of pace.
He was relying on a lot of luck there, but he couldn't really foul or anything like that, so he's always going to be at the table after that shot.
And he also had that saver ball bottom left. He was quite likely to be on had he not been on anything else. Happy obviously to be on the one to the middle, but a surprising miss.
Yeah, they're always missable, those shots queuing over the balls, especially at the start of the match as well, when you've not quite got your arm in.
Yeah, I mean, for most players, as they're lining that one up, particularly queuing over the ball, you'd be saying that's a tricky shot, but you get so complacent with Tom. Very rarely misses anything. You just assume he's going to pot it. So, slightly scrappier second frame than we might have expected so far. One mistake apiece. And the ball's in a much better position than when Phil was last at the table.
Yeah, and this is not I'd say the easiest of finishes yet, but Phil tends to be one of the best players in these situations where you've got a tricky finishes, and he works out the routes really well.
And as a result, makes them look like easy finishes. No player better in the world for looking like he's just rolling balls around the table, and somehow he's unlocked a pattern that people would often have trouble with.
So I think now he's going to come down for the ball in the bottom half of the table, because I'd say that's probably his bad red, and he probably wouldn't want to be leaving that till the end. So he's going to try and come down now and get as close as he can to it. That's a great shot. He's got a nice little angle as well, just to screw back for the red on the left hand side of the table. If he gets on that fairly straight, he should clear these.
This ball's slightly isolated at the bottom, which is why it's good to get it out of the way. Phil teamed up with his good friend Mick Hill in the Pairs Cup. Two players with pretty much the best patterns in the game, just always seem to be in perfect position.
The only thing he's got to be careful with now is he just needs to really drop this in pocket weight, because he doesn't want to bounce too far off the cushion, or he might snooker himself on the right hand red. And I think he's missed the pot because of it.
Yeah, he was trying to play that thick. It wasn't a pot that he'd have missed if the position didn't matter, but it's just trying to make an angle that wasn't quite there to hold the white.
Yeah, when you have to drop it in at that pace, it's always missable. You can get a little bit of a roll off, or you might just not quite cue it properly. And now I'd imagine Tom's going to play the loss of turn shot, and he's probably wanting to pot the red with the yellow and glue the yellow to the red. So I think there he's made sure he got a good white instead of covering the red.
Yeah, there were two options there. As you say, you could have played with more control over the yellow, but then you wouldn't have got as good a white. He's decided to just focus on where the white's going. Both perfectly valid ways of going about it.
This is a very tough cut now as well.
Yeah, he needed to catch that wafer thin. If he'd caught it wafer thin, he'd have potted it and probably would have got the white up and down the table. But it's one of those. So hard to judge, particularly when it's resting against a cushion. A few chances going back and forth, but now Tom is in great shape for this clearance.
Phil will be kicking himself in his chair now, because Tom's made a mistake there before him, and it's not often that Tom's been making any of these mistakes in the last few weeks, so he really wanted to punish that.
No, that's a good point, because Tom isn't somebody that gives away a lot of chances, and you know you're not going to see too many dry breaks, and still less too many misses through the match. So if you're not capitalising on the ones you do get, it's going to be a long afternoon.
I always say the biggest frames in pool are the ones where to win a frame where your opponent's made a mistake, because if you lose them frames where they've made a mistake, they're the really big ones, because they're the ones that stick in your head.
And that psychology is important at this level. I mean, it's important at any level, but so little between the players that those kind of things, it's not just winning the frames, but it's winning the right frames and winning them in the right way can sometimes make the difference in a match. He's left this a bit thinner than he wanted. He should still be able to make the cut, but the cue ball's going to be running a bit looser than it would have been. So Phil Harrison breaks off in frame 3. You're absolutely right with what you were saying earlier, that his break historically hasn't been his strongest suit. I think he is helped with this table being so fast. It's not really all about the power, and that break kind of shows it. A lot of control, and the ball's splitting out really nicely.
Yeah, there was a spell where Phil was going for a power break where on his backswing he was standing up, and he was getting a lot more power in it, but his white was going everywhere. He had no control over it. So I think he's decided now to make sure he controls the white of the break and hopefully he's getting the balls with it as well.
Yeah, I'm never a great fan of it where people look like they're using uncontrolled power. I think you've got to play within yourself. Like for some people, the power game just isn't there. You're better focusing on a good quality contact with the pack. Certainly be happy enough with this split though. And this is a real Phil Harrison special. I mean, for any player, this is a fairly routine position. But for someone with Phil, a real economy of cue ball movement he has. Makes this kind of chance look really easy.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how he's going to go about this. Normally you'd want to get that yellow out of the way at the top of the table, but you might have to leave it till last ball now. He is, so he's dropping the one in the right corner and trying to leave an angle on the yellow into the left middle to just drift down the table for the ball at the top.
Pushed towards that decision by the fact that the ones at the bottom of the table linked up well, and also the fact that the 8 ball is in very open play means that it's not too difficult to get from the one that's near the ball cushion back down again.
Anything but straight now.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly that. And that is precisely what he's done.
I think he's just got enough angle, or I think he can punch out now and just punch the white down the table.
Even if he can't, this table is so fast that screwing off the side cushion is not too difficult a shot.
It's a lovely shot.
On some tables, if you end up straight like that, you really can't get down the other end, but these tables are so fast that worst case you can screw off the side cushion with the reverse side and make it down.
So before I even play a shot, I tend to know every single shot in the finish what I'm going to play, or at least what I'm going to try to play anyway.
That's an interesting insight, because I think a lot of players, particularly when they're coming up through the ranks, struggle to think that many shots ahead because it's almost just too much to compute at any one moment. But I guess that spatial awareness, once you've played so much, you just kind of see it naturally.
Yeah, and I always say that's the difference between pool and snooker as well, because obviously the snooker players, when they come to the pool game, the potting's always really good. But in snooker, you only think 3 shots ahead. I think that's the natural way to think. And that tends to be what slips them up to start with, because they don't think the whole finish ahead, just the 3 shots, and all of a sudden you can come unstuck on the last couple of balls.
I think that comes as a surprise to some people, because it's easy to look at snooker and think it's a more technically difficult game, but in a way the patterns are more straightforward just because the balls tend to be in the same place, the colours are going to be on their spots and the reds are going to be at one end, whereas the nature of the break at pool randomises it a bit more. Meanwhile, a second collector's item of the match, and in off the break from Tom Cousins. I can think of very few matches that we've seen in recent pro events where he's had 2 bad breaks in a row, but that is how he started this match.
This is not an easy cannon as well now. He's got to try and develop these 2 yellows in this shot. He could potentially go in off in the middle with the white as well, and I'm not sure he's going to get both of these out in the same shot, and he hasn't.
No, coming into them at that angle wasn't really ideal. If he could maybe have got behind them, it would have been easier, but he just didn't quite have the angle. And when you're playing into 2 balls, as you say, you tend to get one of them stuck in the same position it was in to start with.
So now he's got 2 options. He's either got to try and leave an angle on a yellow to break this second yellow out, or he could potentially leave it as a double, maybe last ball.
He's got the 8 ball hanging over the pocket, so at least whatever he goes for on the last ball, the position to the 8's not going to be so difficult. I guess it's one of those ones where you're going to look for an angle to break it out, and then if you fail to, you can always play for the double.
Yeah, so he's going to use the bottom cushion here to try and cannon this out. The tricky part is, where's the white going to go? He might be relying on a little bit of luck for landing on another ball after it.
That's the trouble when you play a cannon, because even though the yellow that he's just cannoned is still in a position where he could double it, he wasn't sure he was going to be on that one, and he's not on the other one, or not well on the other one at least.
His only hope now, I think, is if the yellow creeps past the black in the top left. It might do, but it's only half a pocket at best.
it does creep in, he can float that in and leave the yellow down the right rail, but it does look very tight when you see that overhead view. He's used his extension, so he's running out of time as well. Well, that's what he's gone for. Well, so little of the pocket to play for. So what do you like if you're Tom here? Do you go for these or play some kind of turnover shot?
I think if I was at the table, I would be looking for a safety shot here. I just think it's still a bit too risky to go for the finish yet. But that's not everybody's game. Some people just be going for this now. If he is going for it, he needs to leave the red on the top cushion to play off the yellow over the pocket.
Yeah, it did look like he could squeeze the red in and open that pocket up. He's gone the other way. Gonna need to have a second go at this though.
Yeah, I just felt that was a little bit risky. You know, the white could have, if you didn't get enough screw onto it, could have gone in the corner, or you could have flicked off the black and gone in the middle pocket. It's not too bad though where it is, because I think now he's got a nice little loss of turn shot he can play.
You're always vulnerable to that loss of turn when you've only got a couple of balls left on the table, because your opponent can pot one of them and make life hard on the other one. He's in a position he can play the loss of turn now. He's not going to be able to get a snooker, but he could leave the remaining yellow very difficult if he wanted.
So now he has left Phil half a chance here, so what he can do, if he can make this yellow down the rail, Phil can then play the loss of turn shot on the black to knock the red in and leave the white glued to the black. So if he can make this yellow down the rail, it would put him favourite for the frame.
Lee Anderson there, who was the unlucky loser in our first match of today. Played pretty well, but came up against an opponent who wasn't giving very much away. And ultimately that opponent, Jake McCartney, has just won the group final, so continues his run. It's always a tough one when you lose your first match, because some players have travelled a long way to be here, so you have to give up some of their Christmas break to practice for the event. So I feel like you haven't quite had a fair run out when you only win a couple of frames.
Yeah, so Tom's thinking there was to cover the 8 ball, and that stops Phil now potting his yellow and then playing the loss of turn shot after it. Saying that though, if he can get the white ball to the top cushion here after this shot, he can still play the loss of turn. That's what he's tried, but he's just not cued that very well.
It's not really his game, that kind of power screw back shot that for a lot of the pros would be fairly effortless. He also seems to have to put quite a lot of pace into it.
I think we will see Tom go for the finish now. I think if he plants this red near the cue ball onto the red in front of the black will knock the red in over the pocket and come out as well.
From Tom's point of view, that black sat quite nicely for exactly that reason. You can be pretty sure it's going to get out of the way and not hamper you.
I think that's alright.
Yeah, you can see from the speed of him getting down to play this. Got a nice angle here, can just drift across for the 8 ball into the same pocket. Did well there to bide his time, find his way into that opportunity, didn't rush for something that wasn't there. Although winning that last event, it has to be said, really did turn things around, because it would have been a slightly unremarkable season for Tom had he not picked up that piece of silverware.
Yeah, it would have been, because before he won that event, everyone was saying how surprised they were that he was struggling as much as he was, really.
Yeah, and he's been quite honest about it. I think he had a bit of a kick from a few players, just reminded him that he needed to do a bit more practice, and that really seems to have paid off. Pretty dangerous prospect. It wasn't like he was exactly an easy draw before that, but now if he's putting that level of practice in before tournaments, very scary prospect for whoever comes up against him.
Extension center call. Yellow balls.
Phil Harrison, though, is one of the players on the tour that's not going to be phased by Tom Cousins. Phil has also achieved everything in the game. He's going to respect how good Tom is, but he's not going to be overawed by him.
Assuming Phil is going for these now, I would imagine he's going to take the 2 yellows near the cue ball first, and then leave the 1 on, which is on the brown spot, as his next ball, and try to cannon out the yellow on the cushion.
Yeah, I think that's what he was trying to do. May have to slightly adjust his plans, just overrun that positional shot a little bit. Could play the cannon now, take the ball over the corner pocket and screw back into the cluster.
Yeah, this is such a tough shot. Yeah, he's probably played that as well as he could, really, and it's still not come out that nice.
Very hard to get enough pace on that to open it up anymore. The yellow goes, but then it's now linking these last balls up because it's not the most natural path between them. So just coming around to see where this yellow up the rail pots from. It's not the most appealing position. He can afford to be slightly further down the table, but he's not going to be able to get anywhere near straight on it.
Yes, I think he's going to use the red on the right hand side as a bit of a target to screw back to. Probably just wants to be around that area, and he should just about be on it. I think he's just come maybe a ball width too far there, because I think now he's queuing over this red. Which makes this very missable.
Yeah, it really is. Always useful, as you say, to have that ball to target it. It just sort of gave him a guide as to roughly where he wanted to be. Tricky cut up the rail. It's very easy to do exactly that. You see people push it into the rail far more often than you see them overcut it from that position. Much like the last frame, Tom has the luxury of a big ball advantage. If he doesn't want to go for it, and you assume he's not going to, given the position of some of these balls, he's got quite a lot of safety options available.
It's still quite a tricky shot, because it's not very easy to get this safe.
Well, so in fact decided that the aggressive option was the way forward for that reason.
Yeah, I think looking at it, I think he had to play that because there wasn't really any obvious safety on there.
Also got the advantage that if he does need to bail out of the clearance at any point, he could choose to play a safety later on. It's landed almost perfect. He would just love the cue ball to have rolled just slightly further for the ball up the left cushion.
I think he's all right though, because he can still drop this in. He's got plenty of reds to play for after it. I'm surprised he's not playing it.
Yeah, I think he landed a ball closer to it than he wanted, but you felt like he'd still be okay. Well, those ones, if you don't play it, you're not necessarily guaranteed to get any better on it than he was.
Yeah, and I think he's going to try and screw into this now, putting the one next to it first.
The fact that he's got the ball over the opposite middle makes this a more risk-free shot, because he doesn't have to land on the ball he's cannoning. So got everything nicely in position now. known for his big break, but that's not to underplay his break building ability. He does have a very delicate touch in amongst the balls when he needs to.
Yeah, the first 5 frames in this match, Phil has had the first chance in every frame as well, so you'd be really devastated to not be at least winning this game.
Yeah, and it's exactly that kind of dynamic that you were talking about a couple of frames ago, where it's not like Tom's just blown him away with dishes off the break, which he might well have done on another day. So, it's had 2 poor breaks so far. What's Cousins got with this one?
Wow.
Well, I can't think of any matches we've seen where he's had 3 breaks in a row where he's not been at the table afterwards.
And he really put his body into that one as well.
Yeah, he put his body into that, and I think as a result, just slightly lost some of the accuracy. The normal merit of his break is that he gets all the power in and gets a really good straight connection on the front ball. You saw there the cue ball coming off the left-hand side of the pack as we look at it. And these reds have sat down pretty well for Phil.
Red balls in play.
He's going to have to potentially nudge the 8 ball out. May go long if he can't nudge it out, but it's in the kind of position it shouldn't be too hard to free if he needs to.
Yeah, I think if you had ball in hand and you was to put the white there for the 8 ball in the top left, you'd be taking that. So I'd imagine he's just going to leave that into there.
Certainly not much to be done with the balls at the bottom of the table. Well, he's playing into it. Sort of risk-free cannon played in that direction. Well, I say risk-free. I guess any cannon you can get stuck to the ball, which is why you tend to shy away from playing them if you can avoid it. But there, he knew he had several balls hanging waiting for him.
In the end, that cannon's not really much use to him because the best pocket's probably still the top left. If he was to try and get onto it in the left corner or right corner, he's risking going behind yellows, so I think he'll still be going top left.
He's not normally someone to take unnecessary risks. Just happy to leave himself a shot. Just wants to leave an angle on the final red to the same pocket. Just make sure he can get over for that 8 ball.
So I think the 8 ball goes into the right middle. He's just had a look to see if it goes in there. Don't go behind yellow though.
Well, it doesn't look like it goes to the right corner, in which case he's ended up a bit between 2 shots.
Yeah, I think he's going right middle and he's just checking to see that the white can't go in the middle pocket.
Cues it confidently and able to use that yellow as a stopper. We've only got 1.5 minutes at the normal shot clock, and then we'll be dropping to the 15-second shot clock. Well, we often see a grimace from Phil after the break, but I think with a bit more justification this time.
Yeah, I think at quick glance, I think there's only one problem ball though in the top right side of the table. The red and yellow there that are blocking each other.
Taking extension call.
If he does go yellows, he's not going to have a nice ball to cannon that out either, because he's going to be taking the only yellow on that side of the table away from there. So to break this out now, he's going to have to find a nice angle on one of these at the other side of the table.
That seems to be his hesitation. He spent quite a while deciding what shot to play, and I think it was for exactly that reason. It was kind of his only opening ball, but as you say, it wasn't really the one he wanted to move. Well, his luck here. It's not great. He's got the ball to the bottom left, but slipped out of prime position.
Yeah, what he was playing for is the yellow above the black spot to leave an angle to break that ball open early. But he's just ran that cue ball about 2 balls too far.
15-second shot clock in play.
He has just about left that angle now as well if he wants to take it now.
Referee Scott Price announcing that the 15-second shot clock is in play. Phil's used his extension, so he's got to get on and play a shot here.
And it's crazy how when it changes to 15 seconds, even though you heard it announced, within 2 seconds you forget. And that's what he's done there, and he's just rushed that shot.
Yeah, he's certainly one of the more reckless players when it comes to the clock. We've seen him play quite a few shots on the pips of 1 or 0.
Yeah, I think both times he's just forgot within a couple of seconds that he's only got 15 seconds, and all of a sudden the beats come round and you've just got to play the first thing you see.
Extension ball.
Not that it was a simple position because he still had that ball tied up, but it's definitely rushing it that led to that miss. Tom Cousins has got the same problem with that ball, but maybe slightly easy to open up.
Yeah, and this is why at the start of the frame Phil wanted to go reds, because Tom's got a nice connector to break this ball open now. I thought he just missed everything then.
Yeah, he almost did, and that could not have turned out better. Just a delicate kiss has just opened the world up. Seeing glimpses of the quality that we expect from Tom. If he can just get his break going, he could really steamroll her ahead here. Right now, that's what's costing him. Looks like the match isn't going to go the distance unless one player wins all of the remaining frames, because we've only got 7 minutes on the match clock. And with that 8 ball, Tom Cousins goes ahead by 4 frames to 3. So is it 4th time lucky for Tom Cousins? That's a much better hit break. Even regardless of the outcome, he just made a much cleaner connection on that pack than he had the previous one.
Very messy layout though. It's probably not really a finish on.
Yeah, which is going to frustrate him, because having finally made a ball, he's going to be chomping at the bit to go for a finish.
Red ball's in play.
I really didn't like that shot, because now that's not come out nice. Phil's a favourite now unless he can try and double this red in the corner pocket.
The thing about that shot was it was always going to be reasonably easy to get 1 red out, but very difficult to get both. So, as you say, it looks like he is now going to have to play for the double.
Yeah, doubles are never easy in the corner pockets as well. We always prefer to play him into the middle. Great shot.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was by no means a simple shot. If that was to the middle, that would have been close to unmissable, but had to be made in the corner. And suddenly, from a position which a lot of players wouldn't have been that tempted by, Tom Cousins has taken the ball by the horns. Looks set to get his first clearance from the break.
I notice one of the things that Tom does, which not a lot of other players do, is when he's playing his cannons, he does play it with more pace than other players. Whereas I like to play a cannon with a bit more knowing where the balls are going. He does take that risk sometimes, and sometimes it pays off.
Yeah, either looks very good or very bad played like that. Time is going to become a factor pretty quickly. Well, he's done the first bit, and actually at first glance, not a bad layout this.
Yeah, I think if Tom was to get one more frame on the board now, I think that's the match because the clock's running down and there's not a lot of time left.
Yeah, it just catches up with you, doesn't it? This would be a good frame to win. If he gets it back to 5-4, it's going to be a very exciting next frame. Just wanted that cue ball to pull up. It just kept running down the table.
Yeah, he just needs a nice little cannon in this shot now onto the yellow in the middle of the table.
Extension ball.
Just wants to cannon that yellow pretty much full ball to hold the white. Otherwise, it could be going anywhere. That's probably why he missed the pot. He took his eye off the pot trying to get the cannon right.
How many times do we see that? You tell yourself you shouldn't do it, but it was so important, as you said, to get the full ball cannon there, which he did do. Tom's now got a nice angle on the ball to the right centre, to drop in behind the one on the bottom cushion, which could have been the tricky one.
He's a little bit straight. He would have to punch this quite hard, I think, to get down for the yellow on the bottom cushion. Oh, what a shot that was as well.
Yeah, I mean, you were absolutely right, but it's amazing the angle you can generate, particularly when you've got as good a cue action as Tom.
Yeah, that shot, he had to pot that dead centre of the pocket, otherwise it would have spit it out. That's a bit unlucky as well. This is tricky now because depending on how he cannons this red, he might not be in a yellow.
Well, it's all happening there. Yellow and a red. Not bad outcome. I think he has landed with a little bit of angle, so got to be pretty happy with this.
Still going to be leaving a missable 8 ball though. And he's going to try and do a skill shot on the 8 ball, I think. I think that's what he looked at when he was on that last yellow. You'd have liked to be straight on it though.
Yeah, it's got quite a lot of angle here, which makes this a little bit harder to judge. Yeah, it's very easy to get that outcome. That looks careless, but as you say, if he was right behind it, you don't have that problem. So, 2 very important pots for Phil Harrison. He's done the difficult one. Now just get a position on the 8 ball. Well, we are going to have ourselves a final frame. Oh my goodness me. Well, I was chalking that up. He goes over and shakes hands. What an extraordinary end to the match. Phil Harrison, out of nowhere, has missed the most routine of routine blacks.